Here's a list of terms that I plan to be covering in my debate with Ayn Rand. Okay, just so you can follow along. You wonder why I wear a hat. They're a funny hat, right? And that's because, a couple of years ago, what was it, 2017, I put out a little video in which I summarized or synthesized the rational scientific method and rational science. And I symbolically, allegorically pinned them on the doors of Cambridge University, specifically in relation to physics, right? Anyways, these are the words that I'm going to be analyzing between Ayn and me and how we differ, okay? And its definition, rational or rationality, knowledge, truth, fact, evidence. What is an entity? That's the big one, the first big one, right? Entity, object, thing. What is a thing? 10,000 years, no one has defined what a thing is, and Ayn Rand didn't do any better. She did a very lousy job there. I'm going to cover that. Nothing, what is nothing but a space? What is vacuum, right? Concept, exist, especially exist. That's the second big word, exist, existence, okay? Consciousness, atheism, free will, determinism, and what I call narco-cap. I'm going to contrast it to my extinction theory, essentially. I'm going to say that all narco-caps, all people who talk about political and economic systems are out of their minds. We're all going to become extinct very, very soon. Certainly within this century, okay? And so to talk about the future and about your future, people would rather tell you, oh, you got a great future and you got to have hope and you got to look ahead. Well, I'm going to tell you something totally different. I'm going to say you're going to die. And it's not a very pretty theory. Nobody likes it, obviously. I can't do anything about it. And people dismiss me as a nut. And okay, that's fine. I'll accept that. That's a good qualifier for me. Okay, what is wrong with Ayn? Just in general terms, okay? So I lay the groundwork here, okay? This is what I see wrong with her, okay? 99%, with a bunch of nines after that, right? Of humans make the same errors. They confuse ordinary speech with scientific definitions. Ayn was no different. She did exactly the same thing. She confused ordinary speech with, the words that we use in ordinary speech. When we talk about existence, what a thing is, people get confused because we're making a new definition. And you say a new definition? How can there be a new definition after 10,000 years? And the point is that we made it crisp. And because of that crispness, because it's now rigorous, it creates problems because people are still bringing in notions of ordinary speech of those same words. Physical, the word physical is a big problem. People don't know what the word physical means. And they keep thinking the word physical means something which they gathered from ordinary speech. We say physical, well, a table is physical that you bump against because we say, oh, it's three-dimensional. It exists. It's physical. That's not what it's going to mean in rational science. So physical is going to be a serious problem. And Ayn Rand essentially used the word entity. That's the word she analyzed. That's fine. And for us, it's a synonym, so it doesn't matter. We're going to attack her notion of entity. And for sure, if she couldn't define the word entity, she could not have defined the word exist. That's another one that I'm going to look at, okay? Anyways, confusing definitions of ordinary speech. You got to keep a close eye on that. I'm going to emphasize that constantly, okay? She introduced observers, no doubt about it, in every definition. Okay, so and that's a problem because it relates also to the notions that we have in ordinary speech. Anytime you introduce an observer, you're introducing ordinary speech, you're introducing religion. And that's what Ayn did. Ayn did a lot of religion. She did religion, meaning she was a religious individual because she kept introducing the observer. Consciousness, especially. Epistemology, what the hell's that? Knowledge? All this stuff has no place in science. It only belongs to religion. Okay, so anytime anyone talks about consciousness, epistemology, ontology, ontology is a little different word. I'm going to get into that. Metaphysics. They're talking religion. They are religious individuals because they still don't understand what rational science is about. So anytime you use consciousness, let's name them again, just so you get them in your head. This is just laying the groundwork for what I'm going to be talking about. That's where you can get your questions in there, okay? Consciousness, epistemology, knowledge, metaphysics. You're a religious individual. You're a fanatic religious individual. You're a Hare Krishna. You are a Jehovah's Witness. That's what you are. You're going door to door talking about your beliefs. And that's where we differ with rational science. Rational science is something totally radical compared to that, okay? And that's why we're going to have clashes here, okay? There's going to be clashes. She introduces observed witnesses, testimony through consciousness. See, touch our sensations. None of that. We kill the observer completely. Entirety, no mind. Anyone introducing the word mind, spirit, consciousness, no. not in rational science, okay? And she was verbose and very imprecise, vague. She attempted to cover every base in her definitions, okay? And the definitions, scientific definitions should be the opposite. They should be very concise, crisp. And you have to eliminate what is not part of that notion, of that word that you're trying to define. We have to get down to the universals of that word. People don't always comprehend that. Okay, so that's Ayn Rand. She said, she was just like everybody else. She was doing philosophy, as they call it. It's not even philosophy, okay? And that's what we're going to get into. So how do I differ from her? Just on this basis, what you see there. Well, first of all, I'm not human, okay? I'm not human because I don't think like 99.9999999 humans on Earth. So I can reach the conclusion that I'm not human, okay? I can't be. I've got different ideas than everybody else out there. So if you want to compare your ideas, you came to the right place. I don't do philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, ontology, or whatever else you want to call it. I lay the foundations of a discipline known as physics. That's different than doing all this nonsense that came all the way from Aristotle onwards. I do it mafia style. We kill the witness. Anyone introducing observers, testimony, consciousness, sensations, no, we kill the witness. And definitions have to be crisp, rigorous, and as short as can be. Okay. Okay, and continue with what's wrong with Ayn. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, this one. So that we can get into some examples here. She has inconsistent usage of words. So even though you define a word and then don't use your own definition, you don't use it how you defined it, then you still have a problem because now you have inconsistent usage. You meant one thing or you said one thing, you use it in a different way. And that creates problems as well. Serious problems, because it means that you didn't even pay it. You gave lip service to your own definition. And here's an example of covering all the bases of, in other words, partly is the definition, partly is inconsistent usage. They're both embodied here. Someone defines the word object, okay? And you say, or entity or whatever, the thing. So what is a thing? It says, well, it's shape, mass, volume, touch, see. He somehow includes several notions within his definition. And so I come in there and I say, an object is that which has shape. And the person answers, well, yeah, see, she did. She put shape in there. Yeah, no kidding. She covered every base. See, you got to find a universal, the thing that all objects have. And all objects don't have mass, all objects don't have volume. But aside from that, mass and volume are all dynamic concepts. That means you need to have motion. You're introducing motion into the definition. And this is the sort of thing that Ayn does, and many people are not, they haven't picked up on that yet. They have problems in understanding that little problem that's embodied in that definition. They can't see the problem. And I need to highlight that problem because it shows that she did not have a very crisp understanding of what an entity is. And entity is what we got to use in physics. We have to use it in physics. Um, and then in that sense, she was the same as all philosophers. Okay, there was no difference between Ayn and the other philosophers in the past. And here I'm giving you a couple examples, if I can find them here. Um, if I can find it, where is it? Let's see. Oh, here it is. Here you have Hume and Kant. I put this up in the past. They're trying to define what an object is, what existence is, and they run into troubles because Hume says the idea of existence is the very same with the idea of what we conceive to be existent. To reflect on anything simply and to reflect on its existence are nothing different from each other. That idea, when conjoined with the idea of any object, makes no addition to it. He could not tell the difference between entity or object, right? Entity and exist. To him, they were synonyms. He says a thing is a thing that exists, and thing and exist are synonyms. We have two words, but they mean the same thing. That's what Hume is saying. And Kant, a few years later, said exactly the same thing. He says, by whatever and by however many predicates I may think a thing, even in completely determining it, nothing is really added to it if I add that the thing exists. So they were thinking of the word physical again. What's physical? And they say, well, what physical is a thing, and what is physical exists. And so they couldn't tell the difference between thing and exist. And Ayn was no different. She did exactly the same thing that all these other people did. Okay.